Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am the Takonome, and welcome to my humble slice of the internet. That is, well, humble slices of the internet that are my Twitch and YouTube channels. How is everyone doing today? Hope that you're having a good day, a good weekend, and if you are an American, hopefully, fingers crossed that you're having a good 3-day weekend. Well, tonight is a rather bittersweet moment in the reading stream history. But first, before we talk about that, tonight is poetry night, which means we will be going back to our book, A Compilation of Echoes by Janice T. Now, you may have noticed I said we were going back to this book, and that is correct. We have been reading poetry night poems from this book ever since we started this reading stream about 3 years ago, I believe. It sounds like 3 years. Oh, wow, it has been 3 years. Over 3 years. So we are still going through this book. Now, mind you, we only do poetry nights after a book. So now we are in between books. We're going back to this one. And I believe, if I remember last time, we are not far from finishing this book, which I thought it has been a good book for poems for Poetry Night. But for those who may not know who the author is, well, I haven't spoken about the author a lot on this channel because of how infrequently we do Poetry Night. But allow me the opportunity to introduce this wonderful person. Janice T began to write poetry at the age of 11. While in the sixth grade, her class was given a writing assignment. What she wrote there excited her teacher, who announced to his fellow teachers, "I have a poet in my class." Out of curiosity, she went through her father's modest library in search of poets. There she found a book titled The Oxford Book of English Verse. The poems in this thick volume were written between 1250 and 1918. It included the works of the Lake District poets. These poets became her teachers as she began to write poems of her own. Although her first piece was written in prose that many decades ago, and yes, she has dabbled in prose from time to time, Janice T almost always uses a neo-Victorian voice. And there you have it. That is our author for the evening, and I want to apologize for the fumbling I had for reading the bio. I will say it has been a rather chaotic week on my end, but I will get to that very soon. There's many things I'll get to very soon, and we're going to get to it with news for the channel. Now, I mentioned that tonight is a rather bittersweet moment for the reading stream. Just to let people know, no, we are not finishing the reading stream. We will still have the reading stream for the foreseeable future, if not very foreseeable future. Long into the future, we will have the reading stream. However, tonight is the last night that the reading stream will be on a Saturday evening, starting next week. So on June 1st, Sunday, we will have the reading stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, same time of day as always, just a different day. Some of you may be wondering why the change. After 3 years of doing the reading stream, we've always had it on a Saturday evening. Why change it to Sunday evening? This has been a decision in the making for the past 2 years. For those who may not know, I used to live in Georgia, but 2 years ago, my wife and I decided we will be moving to Chicago again. And 2 years ago, I knew that after I moved to Chicago, there was a chance that there would be things or activities I would like to partake in that I could not do in Georgia. And I knew that if I was to join a group or if I want to join an activity in the city or volunteer or anything like that, there is a chance that it would conflict with my streaming schedule. So last year, we moved from Georgia to Chicago. And I was correct. There were things that I or Miss Taka would like to do, and it turns out the time to do it would be during the reading stream or during the gaming stream or randomizer night. And that was becoming too much for me personally to handle, to coordinate, to schedule. Oh, and we also had conflicts with Community Day. That was becoming a lot for me to handle on top of normal work life balance and the nonsense that is happening in the US with politics. So I made a very, I want to say, painful decision last month to start scaling back my streaming. Oh my, I'm a little off tonight. But I wanted to start scaling back my streaming because I wanted that time to connect with the community nearby, to meet people in person, to get away from my computer, if you will, because I spend a lot of time behind the computer. And I don't want to do that. However, the reading stream was the one part of streaming I did not want to let go, and I still do not want to let go. However, there are things I would like to do on Saturday night, and I suspect that for many people, they want to do things on a Saturday night as well. After all, it is the weekend night. Sunday night, however, is still the weekend for me, but I understand that Sunday night is a good time to relax, to prepare for the week, to refresh yourself, if you will. And it seemed like a good time to do the reading stream. I did consider putting it on a Friday night, and I realized that was a very ill advised idea considering that Saturday night people may be busy with things. Friday night people are certainly busy with things. I've also had the consideration of doing the reading stream maybe more than once a week. However, I cannot guarantee that I can keep that commitment. So, for the moment in the foreseeable future, the reading stream will start on Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So there is that big news. And that's why this is a rather bittersweet stream. I cannot speak this evening. That is why this is a bittersweet stream because this is the last Saturday stream for quite a long time, if we ever go back to Saturdays. Next news, the thing I promised to tell you about. I do not know if the sound quality of my microphone has changed since the last stream. And the reason why I do not know this is because my room is currently in disarray. We discovered that, well, we've already known this, but now it's gotten worse. But we've discovered that our upstairs bathroom in our apartment has a leak. The shower leaks. And because the shower has been leaking all this time for as far as we can tell, it has been leaking ever since or even before we moved in. So a portion of my closet ceiling, the closet in the room I'm in right now, it has fallen. So now there's a hole in the closet. We had the maintenance person come over. He cut a hole into the ceiling to take a look and realized, well, there's a leak. Surprise. We were able to escalate this to management again, as well as have a more experienced contractor, if you will, come out to take a look at what's going on. And he confirmed something that we suspected for a long time, which is the leak is coming from the shower above us And to add insult to injury, the shower was not installed properly. So what this means is they whoever installed the shower took shortcuts in installing it, not making sure that it was watertight, and this is the result. So now all of my things are out of my closets. They are mostly crammed into my tiny little office space. I'm fortunate I didn't have a lot of things to begin with, but it's enough to drastically reduce the walking space I have in my room. And I'm not too sure if that's going to have any effects on sound quality. I suspect maybe not. But if there is a slight difference in quality, I apologize. But I believe this is the reason why. As far as other news goes, well, nothing, maybe nothing specifically to the channel, but this is news that I want to bring up, slash something I want to start saying during the reading stream, such as, I appreciate you all joining this reading stream, because I do appreciate you all joining this reading stream, whether you're here live listening to the stream or you're watching the VOD. But the other thing I want to bring up, and I feel that I was able to solidify this a little more, is the reading stream is looking for new stories and new authors. If you or someone you know has written a story, it used to be published a story, but now I'm willing to say if you or someone you know has written a story, published or not, and you would like your story to be read on the reading stream, send me a message via my Twitch profile, my YouTube profile, or on Blue Sky. You can find me using my name, the Takonome. But feel free to reach out, let me know what I would typically do for new authors or new stories. I would read at least one story by the author before I put it on stream. And I do this to one, make sure the story is appropriate, is not too, what's the word I'm looking for? Is not too gratuitous on sex or violence or anything like that. I want to make sure that there is a story. The second thing is just to be familiar with the author's work themselves, who they are as a person, if you will, ask questions, and to get an idea of the story itself before I read it. So I'm not caught too flat-footed, if you will. I have something else to say for that as well, but for the moment, we will stick with that. If you happen to know someone, or if you are an author yourself and you have a story you would like to be read on the reading stream, again, send me a message. And as I've told other authors before, I do not directly make money from reading your stories on here. Now, I do believe, I don't think I have ads on YouTube, and I do not run ads during the reading stream on Twitch. So, my intention for reading your stories online is not to make money, it is simply to share the stories and to keep the reading stream going. I am looking for fresh stories, not ones that are already popular or whatnot. People to, I'm looking for people who are willing to have their work shared with an audience. I know the reading stream isn't necessarily a large audience, but that can change. So, again, if you have a story and you do not mind me reading it on stream, no matter, even if it's not a perfect reading, but if you do not mind me reading your story on stream, give me a contact. Hmm. Oh, that tea is still hot. And I believe that is everything as far as news goes. So with that, we can oh my. We can start tonight's reading. Now, I have the ebook of this book. I did say I was going to buy the actual physical copy and I forgot. I need to keep that in mind for the next one if we still have time. Or I might just get it anyway because support the author. However, we are back in our ebook of A Compilation of Echoes by Janice T. We are about, I don't have the page number, but it is 83% of the way there. And that is a word I have never seen before. I will put it into chat for everyone to see. Did I spell that correctly? I believe I did. I did. Here is the word I see. I do not know if that is pluviophile, pluviophile. Well, I know the last part is file, but I do not know the first half of this word. So we're going to look it up really quick before we begin. Let's see. Pluviophile. Let's go to dictionary.com. Pluviophile. Okay. A person who enjoys rain in rainy days and who is fascinated by the sights, sounds, etc. of rain. Pluviophile. My. Okay. Well, today I learned a new word. I did not. Well, I suppose that makes sense. It makes sense that there will be a word for someone who enjoys rain and the sound and smell of it. But with that, I believe we are ready to go. So, again, this is a compilation of echoes by Janice T. And we're beginning with the poem Pluviophile. And as always on the reading stream, we do 2 reads of the story or the poem before we go into an analysis. So, with that, let's begin. I pulled the curtains back from windows clear and wide, in earnest, hopeful stance to search the open sky for merest wisp of cloud and arcing ever blue, until I burst aloud, "The rain is long past due." Where is that swollen sense when seabirds fill the air and moisture not yet spent is lurking everywhere? Why do they stay away? The seasons will defy. Oh, how I miss those days when all the sky will cry. I have an idea of what it could be, but again, we give it 2 reads before we go into explanations or possible explanations. I pull the curtains back from windows clear and wide, an earnest, hopeful stance to search the open sky for merest wisp of cloud and arcing ever blue, till I burst aloud, "The rain is long past due." Where is that sullen scent when seabirds fill the air and moisture not yet spent is lurking everywhere? Why do they stay away? The seasons will defy. Oh, how I miss those days when all the sky will cry. I had an idea of one way to look at this poem, but the mention of seabirds threw me off for that. However, I still want to go with my first idea, which is this poem is about a drought. Now, is the poem actually about a drought? Probably not. Again, there are seabirds. I don't think seabirds would be nearby a drought. However, that's what I wanted to go with, as The first stanza, I pulled the curtains back from windows clear and wide, in earnest hopeful stance to search the open sky, for merest wisp of cloud and arcing ever blue, until I burst aloud, the rain is long past due. That makes me think a drought is happening. As the person pulls the curtain back and fully back, they really want to look out this window here. And with true hopefulness in their hearts, they're looking to the sky and they're just looking for any hint of rain clouds, but there are no rain clouds. And the person saying the rain is long past due, this gives the impression, at least to me, dear reader, or listener, I should say, that the rain should have been here. It is not, this is not a normal weather pattern. And now their crops are dying. Next stanza. Where is that swollen scent when seabirds fill the air and moisture not yet spent is lurking everywhere? Why do they stay away? The seasons will defy. Oh, how I miss those days when all the sky would cry. Seabirds in this stanza is the only thing that throws me off of this is a poem about drought. Now, one could say you never see seabirds during a drought, which is, I believe, true, but I don't think you see seabirds near farms either. I'm thinking away from the coast kind of farms. I would imagine there are farms near a sea, but maybe a freshwater sea. I wouldn't think there'd be one near a saltwater sea. Although seabirds can also refer to birds of near the ocean, so it's a little hard to say. I do believe that this poem is pretty self evident of what it's trying to say. Basically, there's no rain and there should be rain. Now, another way to look at this poem is what if we took the title pluviophile literally? What if this person is highly stimulated by the rain? To put it in a kid friendly way, just in case children are listening. Now, remember, this channel is for mature audiences, so technically, children, if you are listening, hello, welcome, welcome to the reading stream. I hope that there is parental or guardian supervision with you as you're listening to this, depending on what I say next. However, let's say that this person is really into the rain, very, very stimulated by the rain, so much so that they can barely function with a clear mind when the rain is around because they are that stimulated. Now, I'm pretty sure this is not what the author meant by this poem, and a drought is probably a better interpretation. But let's go with this person is very horny for rain. They pull the curtain back, maybe naked, from windows clear and wide, which now means everyone could see them, an earnest, hopeful stance to search the open sky for merest whisper cloud and arcing ever blue, until I burst aloud, the rain is long past due. Now I'm thinking that the rain has stood up this person who is now naked in front of their window looking for the rain. Next, where is that swollen scent? They really like the smell of rain. When seabirds fill the air and moisture not yet spent, I will leave the moisture line to your interpretation, is lurking everywhere. Why do they stay away? The seasons will defy. Oh, how I miss those days when all the sky will cry. I am now of the opinion, again, going with the literal meaning of this title, that they really, really love rain. Maybe in an unhealthy amount. That the rain stood them up. Maybe they had a date with the rain and the rain said no. That was very loud. I don't know if everyone heard that, but that is another way to interpret this poem. We either have drought or a really horny situation with rain. I'm hoping drought, but I'm kind of hoping the other. But with that, we will go into our next poem. Our next poem is titled When Sunlight Fails. Although, before we go into this poem, I'm going to take a quick drink of my tea. Mm. It's been a while since I had this one. Very well. Our next poem is titled When Sunlight Fails. Sounds very ominous. This is also another short one, but 3 stanzas. So let's see what this poem is about. When everywhere seems clouded gloom, when disappointments press, a famine of the heart presumes that every joy is less. No matter, no matter gentle pleasantries, nor comforting caress, nor any offered remedy to someone so depressed. Yet ample joys there always be to tug the sunken chest until what sheer misery proves but a little rest, a little test. Oh my. Let me reread that last stanza here. Yet ample joys there'll always be to tug the sunken chest until what seemed sheer misery proves but a little test. Okay. I do apologize for my reading, everyone, tonight. It's almost as if I have a harder time focusing on the screen to read as opposed to a literal book in my hand. But we're going to read this poem one more time. When everywhere seems clouded gloom, when disappointments press, a famine of the heart presumes that every joy is less. No matter what gentle pleasantries, nor comforting caress, nor any offered remedy to someone so depressed. Yet ample joys there'll always be to tug the sunken chest until what seemed sheer misery proves but a little test. Now, I do believe this poem is also pretty self evident here. I'm just going to go ahead and say it that sunlight represents your joy or your positive outlook on the world. And, well, depression. The poem is about depression, and, well, really, depression is not the end of the story, if you will. So let's go through the poem again. When everywhere seems clouded gloom, when disappointments press, a famine the heart presumes that every joy is less. So, when everywhere seems clouded and gloom, when you're depressed, everything does seem less bright, less cheerful, very dark. And I would say there is definitely, it's almost as if hopelessness outweighs your hope. Not that you're completely hopeless, but it's hard to see the hope in things. When disappointments press, maybe you had an idea of how things should go and they did not go that way at all, and it turned out the way it went was not advantageous or favorable or harmful, or it was harmful. A famine of the heart presumes. So that joy, that uplifted spirit, if you will, is there's a dearth of it. There's not a lot of it to share or to be had. That every joy is less. So let's say you're depressed and you're trying to eat chocolate, but the chocolate just isn't doing it for you. It's not the same like it used to be. because for some reason, depression makes things taste differently. I mean, in truth, depression not only makes things taste differently, but your idea of joy or things that you normally would enjoy just does not have that same spark. Thus, every joy is less. You should be enjoying it. You know you should be enjoying it, but you just can't enjoy it because the depression has you. That stanza. No matter gentle pleasantries, nor comforting caress, nor any offered remedy to someone so depressed. Well, this stanza confirms that this person's depressed. However, no matter gentle pleasantries, for example, saying, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going? Hanging in there? Don't worry, it'll be all right." Or, nor a comforting caress. "I'm here for you," and they give you a hug and rub your back a little bit, and you know it'll be okay. Nor any offered remedy. Is there anything I could do to help? Is there something that would make things better? Would you like so and so or such and such? To someone so depressed. So it does not matter to someone who's depressed. Now, I would say on some level it does matter. Now, for the poem, it doesn't matter. But in real life, I do believe that these pleasantries and hugs and offers of help do help to some extent. I suppose it depends how severe this depression is. If it's a mild form or light depression, then I will say that it won't pull someone out of their depression right away, but it does help them get over the depression in time. Someone with severe depression, I will say they will need a lot more than gentle pleasantries or hugs or caresses or offers of help. And maybe the narrator of this poem or the target, the subject of this poem, is in that form of depression. However, I still think this is a mild depression. This is my own interpretation. Mind you, I'm not the author, but I think this is a mild depression because of the next stanza. Yet ample joys there always be to tug the sunken chest until what seemed sheer misery proves but a little test. Now, for those who have mild forms of depression every now and then, probably understand this very well that even though you're depressed and your chest has sunken, if you will, there will always be something to help pull you back out of that, something to help lift your spirits. And once you're back out of that depression, once you're able to overcome it, you will realize, or it will seem that what you felt, the depression, not to say that it wasn't real, but it was just a little test. It wasn't actually sheer misery, it was just a test of character. Now, would I like a different test of character as opposed to mild depression or depression in general? I believe I can speak for everybody who's listening or not listening that we would like something a little different than depression for a little test. A little test should not drive you to the point where you're thinking of maybe saying ending your life or anything like that. I would like a little test to be, say, like a pop quiz in school where you have to name the 9 planets. Well, at the time it was 9 planets, I'm old. The 8 planets of the solar system. And the one dwarf planet that's also at a weird orbit in the solar system. Pluto's weird, is what I'm saying. That is a little test. Depression doesn't quite feel like a little test to me. But in the grand scheme of things, I suppose, mild depression, if you're able to overcome it, was a little test. But seriously, Pluto, that is a weird planet. Sorry, dwarf planet. we're being technically correct here. It is a dwarf planet. We're going to take another sip of tea here. Hmm. Also, I want to thank you all for joining this reading stream, whether you're here live on Twitch or YouTube, or you're listening to the VOD. Hope that you are enjoying the poems tonight. Almost says story. We're doing poetry tonight. Hope you are enjoying the poems tonight as well as the reading and interpretation of the poems. I will say, even though I do not do reading stream often, I do enjoy doing reading stream. I am not certain what we're going to do for the reading stream when we would typically have poetry night. Some things are in flux, but I'm sure we can work something out. And again, I do want to bring up this call to action. If you or someone you know happens to be a writer or author and you have a story that you would like to share on the reading stream, again, you can reach me at the Takanome either on my Twitch or YouTube channels, or you can reach me at again the Takanome on Blue Sky. And with that, let us go into our next poem. It is titled Longings. Now, I wonder if this is more of a nostalgia type of longings, or are we talking about an article of clothing? Considering this is poetry, I'm thinking it is the former. We're talking about nostalgia, but let's get into the poem to find out. As if a cave could, screaming, yawn, and grope, with every hope of filling empty spaces, this room within my flesh, my womb, cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. As if an ocean tide were beckoning while pulling me unhindered through the foam, eroding wave by wave my chance to flee, and join with reason on a shore of stone, a yearning to conceive now draws me home. As if amid a forest I've been roaming, a broad bright meadow flashes into sight, where never was a meadow to my knowing, maternal longing seized with sudden might my body in a permeating light. I'm still thinking nostalgia, but we're going to learn a little bit more. More. We're going to learn a little bit more as we read again. So here we go, second reading. As if a cave could, screaming, yawn, and grope, with every hope of filling empty spaces, this room within my flesh, my womb, cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. As if an ocean tide were beckoning while pulling me unhindered through the foam, eroding wave by wave my chance to flee, and joined with reason on a shore of stone, a yearning to conceive now draws me home. As if amid a forest I've been roaming, a broad meadow, a broad bright meadow flashes into sight, where never was a meadow to my knowing, maternal longing seized with sudden might my body in a permeating light. I may walk back the nostalgia angle. I have another angle, but let's explore the idea of nostalgia first and see how well that fits with this poem before I mention the next one. So, As if a cave could, screaming, yawn, and grope with every hope of filling empty spaces, this room within my flesh, my womb cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. Now, going with the idea of nostalgia, I'm wondering okay, so a cave, maybe a yearning for days of yore, if you will, yawn and grope with every hope of filling empty spaces. Well, again, that yearning for something that used to be true or something from their childhood. This room within my flesh, um, my wombs, my womb cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. Now, if we're going with nostalgia, a lot of people have nostalgia for times of their childhood. And when you talk about the inner child, you're searching for your inner child. Nostalgia is one way to bring them out. Something nostalgic, anyway. It's one way to bring out an inner child. So maybe this person is looking for something to recapture that joy that they had as a child. As if an ocean tide were beckoning, while pulling me unhindered through the foam, eroding wave by chance to flee, enjoying with reason on a shore of stone, a yearning conceived now draws me home. I am now not sure how well nostalgia works with this poem. As if an ocean tide were beckoning while pulling me unhindered through the foam. Originally, I thought those two lines meant that the ocean tide being that wave of nostalgia, pulling you, drawing you in, unhindered through the foam. Well, the foam being the surface level of, let's say, a body of water, eroding wave by chance to flee. I get the impression that they're caught in the throes of waves of nostalgia. You know how if you're caught in waves in a body of water, let's say like a lake, a giant lake, or an ocean, if there are too many waves taking you away from shore or even taking you to shore, it's hard to escape those waves. Just kind of being thrown around like a rag doll, if you will. Or if you're a good swimmer, unlike me, like an action figure, because rag dolls, they just kind of flap around. Action figures, they have form, purpose, if you will. Well, not that rag dolls don't. What I'm saying is that you cannot escape a lot of waves tossing you about in the body of water. And for this, the nostalgia, a lot of waves, tossing you around in a body of nostalgia. We are still workshopping this. Next, enjoying with reason on a shore of stone, a yearning conceived now draws me home. It's almost as if they want to escape this wave of a nostalgia, almost as if they don't want to be disappointed by it. And so they're trying to anchor themselves, excuse the nautical terms, but they're trying to anchor themselves back to their present reality, knowing that whatever they're yearning for, that nostalgia isn't going to feel, well, that cave, as mentioned earlier in the poem. Next stanza. As if amid a forest I've been roaming, a broad, bright meadow flashes into sight, where never was a meadow to my knowing. Maternal longing seized with sudden might my body in a permeating light. Now, when I first read this and thinking of nostalgia, I thought maybe the nostalgia was a yearning for their mother. And I thought that because maternal longings seize with sudden might my body in permeating light. And I thought maybe the thought of their mother or the memory of their mother helped help them feel better, or maybe It was a memory they didn't realize they had, but now that they have it, they're suddenly frozen in a good way with the permeating light. Now, that is by interpretation if we decided that this poem was about nostalgia. However, after going through it a third time with the nostalgia angle, I no longer believe this poem is about nostalgia. Mm. Instead, I believe this poem is about motherhood and loss. And I do believe that theme, let's say the loss of motherhood, I do believe this theme fits this poem better. And we're going to go through the poem again, and we'll see how well this idea pairs up with the poem compared to nostalgia pairing up with this poem. As if a cave could, screaming, yawn, and grope with every hope of filling empty spaces, this room within my flesh, my womb, cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. Now, there are two ways to look at this, but I think we're going to look at it the obvious way. This poem is about miscarriage. The cave, screaming, yawn, and grope, with every hope of filling empty spaces. This room within my flesh, my womb. I mean, this person is literally saying my womb. Well, since typically speaking, only women are likely to have wombs, I'm going to say she is talking about her body, her womb, herself, her own womb. And at some point, she was probably pregnant. But as the poem goes on, I believe it's apparent that she is no longer pregnant. Now, it is possible that she already gave birth and just miss having the feeling of pregnancy, or she wanted to give birth and couldn't for either complications or other reasons. And now her womb is empty. And there are traces of a child, traces as in like sensations or feelings or whatnot, that have been left behind. Next stanza. As if an ocean tide were beckoning, while pulling me unhindered through the foam, eroding wave by wave my chance to flee, and join with reason on the shore of stone, a yearning conceived now draws me home. Now, I will say this stanza, these 5 lines, they throw me off a little bit, but we're going to still go with the second thought here of loss. As if an ocean tide were beckoning while pulling me unhindered through the foam, depression, sorrow, pulling this person down because I cannot speak to this exactly because, well, I don't have a womb and I've never been pregnant. But if I had to take a guess, an educated guess based on what I know, and again, I'm a dude, I cannot actually relate to this, but taking a stab at it, I get the impression if you were pregnant, you wanted to keep the child, but then you lost the child. I do not know how to describe that sorrow, but an ocean tide pulling you under through the foam might be a good way to describe that sorrow. Eroding wave by wave my chance to flee. You want to get out of this sorrow. You want to feel better, I suppose, move on, but I would imagine that is very hard to do, much like escaping wave after wave in a body of water, tossed around like a rag doll or action figure. And joined with reason on a shore of stone, a yearning conceived now draws me home. Now, these two lines of this second stanza throw me off. And joined with reason on a shore of stone, which makes me think they want to get out of these waves of depression and sorrow. And the reason, or shore of stone, being a more solid, stable frame of mind, I suppose. However, a yearning conceived now draws me home. I do not know if the author intends for this narrator to yearn to be pregnant again, yearn to try to bring forth life once again. And it's possible. It is possible that is the intention. And through this, through conception again, this person could bring themselves out of this sorrow. Again, I'm a dude. I don't have a womb. I've never been pregnant. I never lost a child through pregnancy either. I cannot say with certain if that is correct or accurate. So I ask you, dear listener, dear viewer, please do not roast me in the comments section or on Blue Sky. I am doing the best I can here. However, final stanza. As if amid a forest I've been roaming, a broad, bright meadow flashes into sight, where never was a meadow to my knowing, maternal longing seized with sudden might my body in a permeating light. I want to say, you know what? I now do not think loss of a child works best for this poem. Instead, and we're going to go through one more time really quickly. Instead, what if this poem is about trying to conceive a child and having a hard time doing so? And I now believe that that is a much better way to look at this, or probably the best way to look at this poem, at least from my interpretation, about what's going on. So, longings could be that this person wants a child, and maybe they've been trying for who knows how long to conceive, but couldn't. So, as if a cave would screaming yawn and grope with every hope of filling empty spaces, this room within my flesh, my womb, cries out for those fulfillments of a child's traces along the inner walls in search of faces. They've been trying to get pregnant for a while. Or the narrator has been trying to get pregnant for a while, has not been able to. Their womb cries for conception, cries for a child to be born or to be formed within their womb and to eventually give birth to said child. Next stanza, as if an ocean tide were beckoning, while pulling me unhindered through the foam, eroding wave by wave my chance to flee, and joined with reason on the shore of stone, a yearning to conceive now draws me home. Now, maybe they are really, really obsessed with the idea of bringing forth life into the world, and that obsession is that ocean tide, those waves just tossing them here and there, hoping to be hoping they can have a pregnancy, eroding their chance to flee, their chance to like try something else, maybe no longer focus on having a child, and join with reason on the shore of stone. Maybe a lot of people are saying, hey, you've tried who knows how many times, it's not happening. Adoption, or maybe travel the world. I'm not too sure what they may say, but it really does not seem like motherhood is in this person's cards. Yet the yearning to conceive draws this person home. Again, yearning to have a child. As if amid a forest I've been roaming. We're in the next stanza now. As if amid a forest I've been roaming, a broad bright meadow flashes into sight, where never was a meadow to my knowing, maternal longing seized with sudden might my body in permeating light. Now there's a phrase that I have not used earlier in this third interpretation, because it has very negative connotations, and I don't want to use this word, but I do think it works with the poem and it seems to make it make more sense. This person not being able to conceive, more than likely people told this person that they were barren, that there was no fertile ground, if you will. However, now, as if amid the forest I've been roaming, a broad bright meadow flashes into sight. This meadow is conception. This meadow is now a fertile land, if you will. It is not barren. There is life and sustainability there. And it seems to happen suddenly because there are stories of people out there who have tried to conceive over and over and over and over again, never conceiving until one day, just this one time, it happens. And it does feel sudden and delightful, even. Now, where never was a metal to my knowing, again, this person just. There's some hope that maybe something could happen, but it doesn't seem like it. But now it's here. They didn't know about it, but now it's here. Maternal longings seize with sudden might my body in a permeating light. They are getting beyond all belief that they are going to be a mother. I will say it's the pregnancy glow. I am now convinced that longings is about wanting to conceive a child and give birth. But that is my take. We went from nostalgia to child loss to child giving. Hmm. Now, before we go into the next poem, we're going to take a, well, not a chapter break, but we're going to take a bit of a break here. And this is where I tell you what I am drinking tonight. Well, I'm drinking tea for one thing, but this tea is called Away with Machines. And the ingredients are dragon fruit. Dragon fruit's delicious, by the way. Dragon fruit, ginkgo biloba, tulsi or holly basil, rose petals, and chamomile. And if you're like me, you happen to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan as a child or even now, and let's say you know the best Ninja Turtle is Donatello because he is the best Ninja Turtle. He carries a big stick. He walks quietly, but or speaks softly and carries a big stick. But he's also the smartest one in the group. Honestly, Donatello will let go. The other turtles, they're cool. I like them too, but Donatello, way to go. Either way, this tea is inspired by is part of the Turtle Power Collection, Heroes in a Half Shell, and Away with Machines. Guess who this tea is based off of? That's right, Donatello, the best Ninja Turtle there is. My truths aside, however, let me tell you about the tea shop where I got this tea. Now, those of you who have been part of the reading stream for months or years, or even if you started last week, you know which tea shop I'm going to talk about because I always talk about this tea shop. But before I talk about this tea shop, hello, Mythical. Welcome to the reading stream, or you may have been here for a while. Hope you're having a good day today. Mythical wrote, I don't know, like, I love Donnie, bro. I hear ya, but Michelangelo, I think even Donnie would agree, is technically the coolest. He might, but I disagree with Michelangelo. What does he know? He's the youngest one. However, that aside, and this is not to say that just because you're the youngest means you're not the smartest, but Michelangelo, he's the party one. I don't know. I don't know if I would trust his judgment on all things. However, the tea shop in Seattle, Washington, that we all know I'm going to talk about Friday afternoon. That tea shop in Seattle, Washington. That is right. We all saw it coming. It is time for our non-sponsored sponsorship that is not sponsored by anyone. Friday afternoon. The tea shop in Seattle, Washington. If you go to their website, www.fridaytea.com, you'll find a wide variety of teas that I'm pretty sure will tickle your fancy, as this tea tickles mine, especially Nancy's Web. It definitely tickles my fancy. Tonight, I want to tell you about the tea called the Green Branch Festival. Let's see, I believe this tea is Oh, it is not seasonal. It seems like this tea is available year round. And it is part of the Indie Tea TRPG collab blends. The first T being the word tea, like the one you drink, and then TRPG. However, the description goes as follows. The Green Branch Festival is here, and with it comes the siren song of fruit and flowers. This pomegranate punch brings the bouquet to a picnic, while green tea and sea buckthorn brings a delicate ocean breeze to your cup. Seems appropriate. We have very nautical themes in our poetry tonight. Ingredients: green tea, pomegranate seed, chrysanthemum's flower, sea buckthorn berry. And as an old added bonus, there's a description of the inspiration of this tea. Snow Bright Studio is an LGBTQ plus game studio dedicated to creating unique, heartwarming experiences for people of all ages and backgrounds. Every game that we create has a family friendly love of learning and exploration at its heart. Check out our upcoming tabletop role playing game, Tea Time Adventures, which pairs perfectly with a hot pot of tea and toasty goods from the oven. And if you're curious about this website or this studio, it is Snow Bright Studio, and you can find them at www.snowbrightstudio.com. In fact, let's throw that here. That is the website. I threw it into chat. So if you're looking to find a nice, cozy tabletop game that you can play with, I would imagine the family, the friends, if you will, that is LGBTQ plus friendly. Check out snowbrightstudio.com. And if I'm not mistaken, the tea inspired by their tabletop game does have a review. It is one review, 5 stars, from actually 8 days ago. This month, May my 2025 or 2025. This is literally my new favorite tea, actually. This is honestly one of the best teas I've ever had. It is so unique and pleasant. It is a contemplative, sweet moment on the rocky cliffs above the sea. A little bite of salty air, smooth green tea, and just a hint of bright red fruit. I can't get enough, seriously. There you have it. We only have one review, but that sounds like a very promising endorsement of this tea here. So again, if you want to try this tea or any other tea on the website, like, oh, say, a clockmaker or, oh, not away with words, but away with machines, or perhaps now becoming my personal favorite, Anansi's Web, go to www.fridaytea.com. Again, www.fridaytea.com. Again, This is not a special promotion that I run. I do not get discounts. They do not bribe me. They do not knock on my door and say, please, Taka, please talk about our tea on stream. We will give you money. No, nothing like that. No bribes whatsoever. I just enjoy their teas. Speaking of which, it's time to wet my parched throat. Although, if you happen to be from Friday afternoon and you're listening to this stream, I want to make this very clear while I have the chance. You do not have to send me free things. You do not have to sponsor this stream. Largely because I enjoy pretending as if they're not sponsoring the stream, but pretending that maybe they are sponsoring, but they're honestly not sponsoring this stream whatsoever. In fact, this stream has no sponsors, only except for word of mouth. Speaking of word of mouth, everyone, thank you for joining this reading stream, whether you're here live or listening to the VOD. I hope that you are enjoying the poems tonight, as well as the reading and sometimes dark interpretation of these poems. Hmm. Looking at the time, I believe we will have enough time to do two more poems. Although, before we jump in, there's something I need to check for later in the stream. I did not click on the right thing. Apologies, everyone. In hindsight, I should have had this ready to go, but I was not thinking about that. Okay, I believe we are ready. So, with the time, looking at it, I believe we can definitely get through one more poem, possibly two, but we will see what we can do here. So, with that, let's go into our next poem. It is titled Pirates. Oh, why this sounds interesting. Once again, very nautical. I have noticed with this collection of poetry, there have been a lot of themes, a lot of nautical themes, a lot of seafaring themes, if you will. Usually water, but sometimes in the sky as well. So let's see what is going on here. Piratus. She knew her way around the timber decks, the weft and weave and mendings of each sail. Her father, stalwart pirate born and bred, a widower, or so was told to tell. But for one port, at sea throughout the year, aboard a frigate, haven, classroom, home, and so she grew without the slightest fear in all things that a pirate ought to know. The warmth of rum had early passed her lips, for shipboard water under spoilish tins. She feasted on provisions from such ships as drew within the telescopic lens. Her uncles, pirates all, at daylight's end, told lively yarns, the exploits of their youth. She smiled and laughed and ventured to pretend that she was none too savvy for the truth. In time, she grew to be a winsome maid, quite capable, robust, and worldly wise. In all things, she was fiercely unafraid, and spoke her heart with no hint of device. In clashes, ship to ship, she held her own, regarding each engagement, closely fought, as opportunity to test and hone, while sizing up potential pirate stock. One day, an able seaman joined the crew, survivor of a battle dearly won, belligerent at first until he proved that he would be a lackey to no one. Intrigued, she slowly dropped her guard, which led to something of a charismatic spell that snared them both, and in due time they wed. A peerless match, or so was told to tell. Once again, I believe this poem is pretty straightforward. This poem does tell a tale, and we're going to go through the tale. But of course, as customary for the reading stream, we give it two reads, and then we go into interpretations or talking about the poem. She knew her way around the timber decks, the weft and weave and mendings of each sail. Her father, stalwart pirate born and bred, a widower, or so was told the tale, but for one port at sea throughout the year, aboard a frigate, heaven, classroom, home. And so she grew without the slightest fear, in all things that a pirate ought to know. The warmth of rum had early passed her lips, for shipboard water under unto spoilish tins. She feasted on provisions from such ships as drew within the telescopic lens. Her uncles, pirates all, at daylight's end, told lively yarns, the exploits of their youth. She smiled and laughed, and ventured to pretend that she was none too savvy of the truth. In time she grew to be a winsome maid, quite capable, robust, and worldly wise. In all things she was fiercely unafraid, and spoke her heart, with no hint of device. In clashes ship to ship she held her own, regarding each engagement closely fought as opportunity to test and hone while sizing up potential pirate stock. One day, an able seaman joined the crew, survivor of a battle dearly won, belligerent at first until he proved that he would be a lackey to no one. Intrigued, she slowly dropped her guard, which led to something of a charismatic spell that snared them both, and in due time they wed. A peerless match, or so was told the tale. Naturally, this poem is about a pirates, as is the title of the poem, piratress. And we see her, we see family lineage, we see her come into her own, and we see a wedding, or as the tale goes anyway. So let's go through the poem one more time, and let's put all the pieces together here. She knew her way around the timber decks, the weft and weave and mendings of each cell. Her father, stalwart pirate, born and bred, a wielder, or so was told the tale. So clearly, she knows her way around a ship, pretty much. And her father, being a pirate, will help explain why she would know her way around the ship. Now, the father apparently lost his wife, or so was told to tell. Maybe he lost his wife, or maybe his wife mutinied and he had to let her go, bitterly let her go, or maybe she came down with scurvy or some other illness. Who knows? But he's a widower now. Well, I wonder now, the pirates, has she met her mother? Was her mother also a pirates? Next stanza. But for one port, at sea throughout the year, aboard a frigate, haven, classroom, home. And so she grew without the slightest fear in all things that a pirate ought to know. I assume that she grew up on a ship, but I do not believe that the ship set sail. I don't know if she, but for one port at sea throughout the year. Maybe when this ship returned, it's a frigate. She considered it a haven where she can be herself, maybe, a classroom where she could learn more about pirating, and home because maybe she never felt at home on land. And so she grew without the slightest fear in all things that a pirate ought to know. So on this ship, on this frigate, she was able to learn all the things about pirating and become desensitized to it, if you will. Next stanza. The warmth of rum had early passed her lips, for shipboard water unto spoilish tins. She feasted on provisions from such ships as drew within the telescopic lens. So she had her first drink, maybe at the age of 8, 9, or 10, if you will, for shipboard water unto spoilish tins. That I do not know how to interpret, but I could definitely interpret the next two lines. She feasted on provisions from such ships as drew within telescopic lens. If a pirate ship saw your ship and you were not ready to fight them off, your spoils or your delicious food becomes their delicious food. So do not let pirates see you. Next stanza. Her uncles, pirates all, at daylight's end, told lively yarns, the exploits of their youth. She smiled and laughed and ventured to pretend that she was none too savvy of the truth. So this one also threw me off at first, but I think I got it now as far as my interpretation goes. Her uncles are all pirates, which not surprising. Also not surprising, maybe she has more than two uncles. Maybe she has several uncles. Or maybe they're all or maybe in this case, maybe they're not blood uncles, but adopted uncles. You know how some people may have play cousins or play siblings, play parents, or so forth, adopted family, if you will. Maybe all of these pirates, her uncles, quote unquote, they all took the point of being her uncle. For example, I am an uncle, but I am also an uncle to some people's children that I have no blood relation to whatsoever, or quote unquote legal relations to whatsoever. They're my friends. However, they have a child or children, and their children sometimes refer to me as Uncle Louie. Am I their real uncle? No. But am I an adopted uncle? Yes. In this person's case, all of the pirates are her uncles. So at the end of the day, they all tell their tales of their exploits. And she laughed, she smiled, she enjoyed the stories, but she was smart enough to know that they were exaggerating, that there's some truth to their stories, but she also knows that they're exaggerating. But it's okay, they're all having fun. That stanza. In time she grew to be a winsome maid, quite capable, robust, and worldly wise. In all things she was fiercely unafraid, and she spoke her heart with no hint of device. Time has passed. Maybe she's now 14 or 15, I'm not too sure. Or maybe she's in her young 20s. She was very capable, robust, and worldly wise, probably traveled the seas a few times. And she was just unafraid, no reason to fear. And she spoke truthfully. She said what was on her mind. She didn't sugarcoat it. No hint of lying or deception, maybe. Maybe. She's a pirate, so maybe there's a little bit of deception there. But perhaps she spoke straightforward. She was a straight speaker, straight shooter, if you will, especially with the flintlock pistol. Straight shooter. Now, next stanza. In clashes, ship to ship, she held her own, regarding each engagement closely fought as opportunity to test and hone, while sizing up potential pirate stock. Now, when I first read this, I thought maybe she was testing other pirates or other foes or opponents to see if she wants to bring them on her ship as a crewmate. And maybe she is. But another way to look at this is she's looking for a mate. And what better way to look for a mate than through combat? Ship, like pirate to pirate combat. That is perhaps the best way to find your mate, or to find your mate through combat. Not necessarily against them, but maybe side by side. You know that true love will survive if you can survive a pirate battle together, whether you're opposing forces or together. If you can survive a pirate battle together and, come out alive, then maybe that is the definition of true love. And now I think I need to get a pirate ship, but I'm not too sure. Next lines. One day, an able seaman joined the crew, survivor of a battle dearly won, belligerent at first until he proved that he would be a lackey to no one. Again, battles create true love. One day, an able seaman joined the crew. Now, they said survivor of a battle dearly won, which makes me believe that they did capture this man fair and square, or at least square, but maybe not fair. Again, they're pirates. So I guess unfair and circly. Survivor of battle dearly won. Belligerent at first, which makes sense because he was not part of their crew. He was opposed them until he proved that he would be a lackey to no one. Now that threw me off at first because clearly no one is going to be above him. He was probably the captain of the ship that they took over. So he refused to submit. And for some reason, apparently, he was belligerent until he proved that he was not going to submit to anyone. However, next stanza and final stanza, intrigued, she slowly dropped her guard, which led to something of a charismatic spell that snared them both. In the due time they wed, a peerless match, or so was told the tale. So over time, true love truly blossomed. Yes, they may have been enemies, but there was just something about him, something about how he carried himself, how he refused to answer to other people. He had a mind of his own. He was not going to be just a lackey, and she found that very admiring. Maybe it reminded her of her father or her uncles. I am not sure. But slowly she dropped her guard, testing the waters to see is this really true. And maybe he was surprised by this, and they both realized maybe they have feelings for each other. After all, they did clash swords, I'm assuming. And now maybe they want to clash more than swords. And so now they got married. And it turns out that they are a power couple. Or so was told the tale. But I like to think that they're clashing more than swords right now in the ship's cabin, in the captain's quarter. I wonder who's the captain. That aside, that is the interpretation I have for this poem. I think it's rather straightforward. It's a nice story. Looking at the time, I do not believe we will have enough time to go through the next poem. So here, we're going to get ready to call it an evening. Everyone, once again, thank you for joining this reading stream, whether you're here live listening, either in the background or you're in chat or you just have it playing in the background, or if you're listening to the VOD, same things apply. I do appreciate it, and I hope that you have enjoyed the poems as well as the reading and interpretation of these poems. Again, tonight is the last night that we will do the reading stream on Saturday. The next reading stream will be June 1st, Sunday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I need to specify that it is at night. And again, if you or someone you know has written a story or a book and you would not mind having it read on the reading stream, in fact, if you think it will be delightful to hear your story read on the reading stream, again, you can message me on my Twitch or YouTube channels or on Blue Sky, the Takanome. And with that, I wish you all a wonderful evening, a wonderful day, no matter what time it is for you. Be safe out there. And until next time, take care and goodbye.